Hey, this is Jamey with Stonemaier Games, and today I'm going to talk about my favorite mechanism in the newly released expansion for My Little Scythe, Pie in the Sky. June 19th is the retail release date. Our pre-orders have all fulfilled at this point. Yeah, so it's a fairly small box expansion, but it adds a few new characters to the game. There are two new factions, including the owls here. You get two of these little miniatures, and you get two Arctic foxes as well. These are the new seekers in the game, two of each. And for the first time in My Little Scythe, we added asymmetric abilities. And this is something that Hobie and I talked a lot about, and he tried out a bunch of different ideas. We wanted to keep the expansion. Oh, and I should say, I run Stonemaier Games. This is our game. This video is a little bit different than the normal videos when I talk about games from other publishers. But we wanted to add a little bit of asymmetry to the game, but still keep it as a family weight game. We didn't want to have like the asymmetry on the level of Scythe or Tapestry games like that. And so what we came up with was a system that uses a shared airship, which is my favorite component and mechanism in the game. And it ties into each player having a little player mat extension that is associated with a faction, but they can be randomized. You don't need to play them with your faction necessarily. And they each have a little ability tied to the airship. And so each player has a core ability that they can use to move the airship around. So this little overlay goes on your player mat, and it adds some new options that you're basically rolling a die that moves the airship around. But at the same time, you have this ongoing airship ability that you can use when you're interacting with the airship. So I like that we added this little bit of asymmetry. But the really cool thing that I love is that instead of giving every player an airship like we did in the Win Gambit, the Scythe comparison to this expansion, we put one airship on the board, which creates some really interesting interactions because any player on their turn can move this airship using that new Seek ability. You're rolling the airship die, and you are moving the airship a certain number of spaces around the board and doing different things. The airship interacts with the board by picking up resources, basically. But I love the idea that all players are sharing this component because it both leads to positive player interactions where, say, I am hoping that the airship will move towards me so I can do something with it, and maybe I need some resources in my turn. And so on your turn, you might help me, maybe knowingly, perhaps not, by moving the airship over to a certain space or closer to me or closer to where I need it to be. But at the same time, without any spite involved, I might move the airship away from a space that you need it to be. And perhaps sometimes that'll be intentionally because there is a fair amount of player interaction in this game given the map. So I love the idea of this one shared component that means something slightly different to each player in the game. And that is my favorite element, my favorite mechanism in My Little Scythe, Pie in the Sky. If you played My Little Scythe, I hope you give this expansion a chance. It adds some fun little interactions without adding a lot of rules weight at all. And if you haven't tried it, give My Little Scythe a try. It is basically a streamlined version of Scythe with some fun new elements. I'll link below to my favorite mechanism video about My Little Scythe itself so you can see some of those mechanisms and if you're intrigued by them. Yeah, those are my thoughts. If you have any thoughts about other games that have one component like this or one element that's shared among many players in kind of well, in this case, it's a map-based tug of war, essentially, but there might be other versions of that in other games. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks.